Hey there, Sarah. How are you?
Good, doing well. How are you?
Good, good. So here we are, everybody. We have Sara.Ann Logan, VBC Studios, a master of modular and volumetric design. I love it. I'm so happy that you're on the show today.
I'm excited to be here with you, Dave.
Yeah, yeah. So we got a lot of ground to cover, and I think there's going to be a lot of people interested to learn from one of the best in the industry about modular and volumetric. So why don't we hop into it by you giving us a little bit about your background and how you got from point A to point B?
That's a long story, but I'll try to shorten it for you. I got my undergrad degree at Rice University in Houston. Little plug for them. Yay, Rice, go Owls. And since I got my degree, actually, I spent most of my time in San Francisco, doing really large retail master planning and architectural development, from San Francisco all the way down to Los Angeles County and Orange County. And also, with that same firm, I did some large multifamily development processes. And really from that, I really fell in love with kind of the built environment, but specifically as it relates to housing. I really wanted to figure out, how to build better environments for people to live in, more accessible environments for people to live in, and really kind of give people access to architecture in a way that that you're not necessarily taught to do in school. And then kind of from there, I went to luxury single family, a little bit of a jump, but that way I could really think about detailing and how people would interact with spaces. And then really led me back to multifamily residential because single family is a little bit, the market is so, how do I say this? There's just so little access to architects in that market. The top 1% of the top 1% have architects design their houses. So I wanted to really have a little bit more ability to affect people's lives. And I feel like the niche kind of place to do that is in multifamily design because everyone needs to live somewhere.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So what about modular? Right. All right. So that kind of took you down the road and your background. I mean, but you've become almost synergy with modular and volumetric. This is really what has me intrigued. Like what got your mind thinking this way?
So really what happened, I mean, it's kind of happenstance. I think probably about 10 years ago now, we were setting up these kind of little case study houses, and we were really trying to figure out a way to affordably and consistently build in these kind of luxury markets with wage rates and pay rates of insane cost, thousands of dollars a square foot. And how do you make that affordable? How do you make it accessible? How do you make it attainable? And we kind of went down the path of standardization of these units and really looking to offsite construction as a way to build all of the kind of bathrooms and living spaces, all of the spaces that are more complicated and more expensive to build in the field. So we did a lot of case study homes about that, and that just kind of piqued my interest. And it was just like, okay, well, if you're applying this on a smaller scale, can you apply it on a bigger scale? And then that's just what got the ball rolling.
Right. And where you're at today. So you're a team of how many now?
We're 27 people and counting.
Right. Globally.
Globally. And so in 3 states and 2 countries. So, and that encompasses not only just the architecture and design team, but also encompasses the factory engineers and factory engineers and drafters.
Right. And so how many architects are in your studio?
So all of the architects are based here out of the Cambridge, Boston office. So there are 10 of us in that office. Right. Yeah, there are 10 of us there.
Yeah. And are you finding more and more architects are really looking at offsite construction, modular, volumetric as the way forward? Or are you having a lot of interaction these days?
I think we are. We're having some I have conversations all the time with very large architectural firms, people who are, have shaped the market over the last 60 years, who are really looking to this as a way to kind of solve or help solve the affordable housing crisis that we see in all sectors of the market.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you know what? I think it's going to have to go this way to make any type of big impact. It's such a big issue right now. And it's great that you're leading the way. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about some of the projects that you and your team have worked on, are working on. Can you tell us kind of some of the what you're known for? You did some residential. You were also in commercial. Let us have it, and then I'm going to dive into it.
Okay, I love modern design. So for me, if you can take these more kind of entry level accessible projects and really transform them into kind of sleek, I don't want to say cutting edge, but cutting edge
Right.
interiors and exteriors, I think that's really goes into my point of kind of making architecture more accessible to everyone. So we're doing a lot of that. I think we're, trying to standardize various units so that we can really start focusing on making those standard and making those be able to be rolled out across the country. We're working on that with the MMC, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later. Yeah. The last few months, we've done a really tremendous effort at our COVID response units that we're also working on with the MMC to try to insert and kind of help now, but also be able to reuse and utilize in the future, which I think is a really fresh take on things that I don't think a lot of firms or companies are really thinking about, how to use something now and not just have it be kind of done at the end of this crisis, but really future planning and how we can use it moving forward. And then, on top of that, we're, standardizing supply chain, trying to get these like really nice, high quality materials to be more accessible and more used in our projects. And on top of that, we're trying to create just standard affordable housing units. So, right. And working with the requirements of those units and making sure that those are fully incorporated in the product that we're offering.
Sure. So how about some trends? Are you seeing trends in the industry? Like, you like modern design. We're seeing a trend towards offsite in general, volumetric and modular. But are there any design trends that you're getting, kind of an abundance of inquiries about, or where do you think it's heading?
I think as far as design trends, I think that there's a lot of thought being put onto two things actually in the kind of architectural world. One of those is coordination and how we can kind of streamline the coordination process through new ways of coordinating and corresponding with our team. So there are these large platforms that are being developed where, people can work with architects and engineers and designers from all over the world in the same kind of three-dimensional model, so that we can really try to cut down on rework and coordination issues that you see in the field. So really a huge push to coordinating these and building these models virtually for modular and for offsite construction virtually, and making sure that there aren't going to be any issues later on. So there's a big push to that. And I think that's not going to stop. I think more efficiency is going to be the key in doing all the things that we all want to do. But, and then secondly, I think the other thing that really is happening a lot recently, or talk is happening about, is computational parametric design, those kinds of things. How do you automate, if possible, predictable tasks and make those, it goes into coordination as well. Like I previously mentioned, you don't want to make mistakes, right? I think as the projects get bigger and more complicated, we want to all try to not make those mistakes. But more than making mistakes, I think it will allow us kind of these iterative processes that we can get to a solution faster, which speaks to efficiency, cost, all of those things. It also speaks to younger architects getting more experience than they would traditionally.
Right. And what are you seeing as far as the design software, the technology that's coming in? Because modular in of itself has always struggled
Mhm.
with having a software that is able to design volumetric buildings without having to almost retrofit, the AutoCAD 1 or AutoCAD 8 or whatever the level is. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are using to get to these 3D designs, the volumetric designs, and you're doing it globally? So
yeah, we are using our main kind of drafting software, modeling software is Revit. It's kind of the industry standard these days, and modular construction versus non-modular construction, everyone's using it. So that's good as a kind of baseline for everyone to work from. But in doing that, also we have plugins with Dynamo and all of these things that will help us parameterize various parts of the model. And their BIM 360 is a great platform. That's one of the coordination platforms that I was talking about or referencing earlier. So those are really what we're using. And then we have various visualization software that we also employ.
Right. So you're using a bunch of different things to, one, aesthetically show what you're building, and two, the actual design that takes it to the manufacturing floor, correct?
Exactly. So what we're doing specifically is we have our kind of architectural models and structural models. All of our engineers are working in the same model, and we can really actually, spin it and move it and see coordination from your desk of what someone else is doing, states or countries away. So
Sure. So for somebody that doesn't really understand computational design or parametric design, can you explain that a little bit and what that means? Define it.
That's a good question. So, I remember about, probably 8 years ago now, like parametric design is not new. Large architectural firms have been using this to create kind of strange and interesting volumes. I think all of the kind of famous buildings of the world that have been built in the last decade to 20 years have somewhat used this to kind of irregularize facades, but regularize them so that someone could construct them. And I think that that's where it started. And I think that is a great use for it. But I think now it's really parameterization and design options and computational design is really helping us set rules and set rules for the actual construction of the building, or the kind of thought process or analysis composition of the building. And it has so much more far-reaching impacts, as aside from, elevations. It is really talking about how you push and pull these things in order to create design options so much more quickly than you could if you were just developing one option at a time with a human drafter. So it's really, and I think we're at the infancy of it. I think really making these kind of smart designs, or making the smart code behind the designs, I think is going to be really valuable for us all to do.
Sure it is. Well, tell us, what do you got in the pipeline? What are we working on? Because we're gonna. Well, let me step back. We're gonna get into the MMC, and what we're doing there, because you have a big role behind that. And I've had Vaughn and Colby on a couple of times now, and I think they're on again next week, just to catch us up. So we'll hop into that. But I'm really interested in hearing about some of the work you guys have going on that are jobs that you finished that you're super proud of. And I know you have some stuff to show us as well.
I do. I was going to start with the MMC stuff.
Let's do that then.
Yeah, let's do that. You let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Let me put it up for you here.
Perfect.
All right. Got it. Oh, lost it. Got it. There we are.
So, again, this is what we were doing in response to the kind of COVID worldwide crisis that is happening, pandemic that's happening right now. And this, like I mentioned before, what's really interesting about this is its future use, right? I think a lot of disaster response ends up being left in the dust after the response has ended, and we all kind of move on to our everyday life after pandemic. And I think what we were trying to do was figure out a way in which we could design these things that could be usable later on. So adaptive reuse for new projects, which is something that I haven't seen done and I think is really interesting. So here what you see is these are kind of ward style designs. So it's just 2 bathrooms, 1 module, 2 rooms, and they were essentially designed to be treatment rooms. And I'm going to move forward into the next slide. And then we have some renderings of top view and side view of how those would look. They're very simple materials, but by doing so, the concept here is that it would be a clean, easy, quick to build response module that could be rotated and stacked up to 3 stories to create a building in its temporary use case. But I'm going to move on to this second slide here. And this second slide is talking about the individual room options, which really is just based on the care of the care of the person that is needed in the individual unit room. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then this is showing a couple of renderings of that. But so it's very simple, very clean, just kind of not anything to write home about, but really what is built into the design is the ability to transform a unit that looked like this into a unit that looks like this for potentially student housing, veterans housing, these other kind of crisis housing markets that we have that are in existence that we're not really thinking about now, right? So wouldn't it be great if we could take these, emergency response units and then really tackle these latter housing crisis in the future? And, yep, go ahead.
So if anybody's joining us right now or you don't understand, so right now we got Sara.Ann and Logan on VBC Studios, and what Sara is saying is for the COVID crisis, the Modular Mobilization Coalition has come together, and what that means is a bunch of manufacturers and suppliers and partners have all come together to help come up with a solution for this crisis that not only helps with the crisis, but can be reused in a permanent structure to help with affordability, help with homeless, help with veterans, help with student housing, not fill our landfills with FEMA trailers.
Exactly.
This is what this was all about. It's a greener, better way to do it, and it provides real shelter for longevity. So go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
That's exactly it. We want to make sure that the total life cycle cost is what you're thinking about, right? This is a huge financial, burden to the nation. And really the question is, let's make sure that what we're investing in can be used later on. Yeah. And so that's this is kind of one of what we're envisioning would be a dormitory in its end goal, which is like, the nicest dorm room I've ever seen. So I think that's one of the ways that we're trying to use it moving forward. But I think an even more interesting option is this. So this is taking our ward style or our divided unit style and making it into kind of larger apartments. So and these apartments are roughly 350 and 500 square feet. So we're seeing they're very applicable in urban markets where you have the homeless and veterans housing and supportive housing are in real need. And where we're also having an affordable housing crisis. So if you're looking at this, it's really difficult to see, but it's just one big room. And what we're engineering into these is the ability to stack to 3 stories. We're engineering into it the ability to pre-plumb for plumbing. So you can install a kitchen in the field after these are used. And you'll see that this little area here is really interesting because that's where you just pop out into the hallway and into the corridor, and you can actually get access into the bathroom. So you're turning hallway communal access bathrooms into individual bathrooms for your units. And just to show you guys what that could look like, I mean, this is the 330 square foot unit studio, and in these, we're finding that in market rate, this is what you need, and even more so in affordable. So single room studio, which will give you space for living space and bed space. And then the bathroom was behind this kitchen wall. And then the larger of the 2 sections would actually even give you enough space for a dining room.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. The design process that went behind this is absolutely amazing because they can be used as single structures if needed, but then they can also be used for multi-story, multi-purpose configurations. And it's already been pre-planned and laid out for whoever needs them now, and somebody can repurpose them. I'm sure for a lot less money than what they were originally built for, right? I mean, that's
Yes,
the beauty of
yes.
it. It becomes affordable.
It becomes affordable. You're using the same thing in multiple times. And I think that one of this slide is really just to show you guys really all of the iterations with, there are 6 different module types. I was just showing you one of them, but with those 6 different module types, you can create a litany of various building typologies based on exactly what density you need. And it's really a little bit of a fun game of Tetris.
Yeah, for sure. That's what it looks like, at least on the computer screen, huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a fun game of Tetris, colored Tetris. Yeah, and I think the next slide is going to show you. So if you look at the unit in the bottom right, this is one of the ones that we like just because it gives us the most density and the most bed count for the COVID crisis. But this unit, really what we did was say, this next building would be a temporary building, just kind of constructed in parking lot.
Right.
And that is the layout, and it gives you the total number of beds that it noted on the previous slide. And then the really, really interesting and powerful thing is that same building typology and building structure could look like this in its, in its stacked form. So this is a podium with 3 stories of those modules above it. And, it could fit into any city. And separately,
right,
that's also the same building. So it can just become powerful because modular, this is the great thing about modular and offsite construction. How it gets there is not the end. You can add, as an architect, you have the freedom to do a lot to it. And I think that is a huge misconception that I've come up against, is that people think that, oh, because it's modular, you can't do the same things that you can do with site construction. And it's just not true. There are limitations, but with a good architect and someone who knows exactly how to design modular, you can get the same finishes. And actually you might be able to get better finishes because, the kind of overall cost and holding cost of a developer or governmental agency is lowered.
Yeah, for sure. So with all this modular, like what you're doing here, and you're talking about how architects can transform these modules to be any way they want them to be, that brings up a really, big point, or a lot of questions that come across. How does somebody get training and learn how to go from traditional architecture to volumetric modular construction? Because you can read about it all day long, but there's a lot of things between the lines that if you don't understand it, it's going to nip you in the butt pretty quick. Yeah,
that's a good question. I think that slowly but surely, there are institutions who are really starting to have architectural studios that are founded in modular design. I believe right. Berkeley, I think UC Boulder has a program that's coming up. On the East Coast, not so much, but I think that we will, the more people know about it, I think that architectural colleges and universities are going to start incorporating that. I think the AIA has done a great job of kind of really trying to push people in this direction. And I think also the ICC has as well, by starting various groups to study kind of offsite construction, whether or not there's slightly different codes that should be applicable to them. So I think it's coming. So for people who are saying, hey, I want to get trained on how to do this, I think really it's more of, I think you're going to have, there are certain firms that are doing this. I think you're going to have to get in touch with those firms at this point because it's really in its infancy. I don't think that a lot of people are trying to train this way.
Sure. Right. Well, they could reach out to you too, couldn't they? Because you're not busy, are you?
We are hiring. So I think that in general, I really believe in education and not just education at the university level. I believe in education at the professional level. I think that we have relationships with other architects that we work with on a day-to-day basis. And really for us, it's not about keeping our knowledge in our box and kind of proprietizing that. Like it is for us, it's about making sure that everyone understands the basic principles of these things because they are important. And we really want to make an impact for the entire community, modular community, not just for VBC. So
right, For sure, for sure. Well, you know what? And I say it on every single show. We're only 4 or 5% of the entire market. Nobody has the golden egg. If
No
we
one.
did, we wouldn't be 4 or 5% of the entire
Yeah.
market, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
So,
Agreed.
but I think that's a valid point. Everybody looking to get into this space has to understand everybody's really willing to share information and to talk and to grow the industry, and that's really what we're all pushing for. So, all right, if you're just joining us, Sara.Ann Logan is on from VBC Studios. We're talking all about modular design, volumetric design, parametric design, and we're going to get into DfMA in just a second on that. So if you could, please hit your like and share buttons. We are live not only on LinkedIn, but we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we're growing. All right, let's hop into DfMA. Tell us about, we're talking about design. I put it out there all week. What is DfMA? Can you elaborate on it?
Design for manufacturing assembly. So this one's a little bit trickier. I think really there can be DfMA for lots of things, but as it specifically references modular construction and volumetric construction, I think it's really about understanding how the factory or the factories that you're designing for put everything together. And it's really, how do you do that? How do you specify things, and how do you draft and model in a way that makes it more conducive and easier for that factory to operate? And it's not just about having certain details that the factory likes, or having certain doors or having certain windows. It's really about the speed of how you can put those in, you know, the limiting of people's, like, you know, how far they're moving in order to get wood from one place to another. It's really encompassing holistically what the most efficient way to put a building together is. Right. And it's not necessarily, like I mentioned, it's not necessarily just in the drawing documentation. It's in everything, you know. It's in design for manufacturing could potentially mean, instead of having 40 different sinks or toilets that we're putting in, maybe we're specifying that to 1 or 2, so that you really are training the installers to do something a specific way, more thinking of it as an assembly line, an auto assembly line, instead of right. You're not a framer necessarily, but you need to know how to frame this one piece of wall, and these studs are always going to be in this location. So kind of retraining yourself to be a cog in a big wheel, which is very strange to do. But
yeah, well, it takes a different way of thinking. Not only for us, you know, people like veterans that have been in this industry for a while, but you know, to get people in this industry, it's going to have to get more automated. You know, and I'm sure you're starting to see more automation come in. Is that an accurate comment?
I think it is an accurate comment. I think you have to stop thinking construction is a trade, and it's a beautiful trade, and craftsmen are wonderful and will always be needed. I think, but at the level of of which housing and buildings are needed, we are seeing a dearth in that kind of overarching knowledge. So we're really trying to train individuals who might not be predisposed for construction to do construction. So it really is more like a, you know, assembly line, and we're cogs in the wheel.
Yeah, for sure. How do we stack up to Europe and what they're doing? Because they have a lot more automation in place, at least from what I've seen. And they have a lot more youth interested in the trades because of the automation and the technology that's there. I mean, do you see that as well? And do you see that happening here in the States too?
I think that, you know, we're behind a little bit in the States. And I think that's what I think that's what we're all trying to fix, right? So I think we're trying to learn lessons from what is done there, and trying to bring them here and apply them to the kind of uniquely, the things that are kind of uniquely American, right?
Right.
For instance, our factory can build really longer boxes, and in the, you know, European markets, they don't really do that. And really thinking about why they do that, whether or not that's something that we should be adopting, or whether or not we really should be doing these kind of bigger modules to get more efficiency. And these are the kind of, just the size of the box. That is a, you know, long process, and right. Figuring out what you should do is one that will shape the course of the factory and the course of the designs for the factory. So even just that one point can affect everything.
Sure, sure. And how about you guys? You're on a hiring spree, like you said. You know, you guys are gearing up. Are you seeing you get not seeing? Are you getting a lot of inquiries of people that want to work, you know, in this field in drafting architects?
We do. We do. I think that in general, a lot of my feelings about the kind of modular industry in general is that because of the speeds in which you build and produce product,
Right.
the design timelines are significantly shorter than they would be in traditional architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean for a young architect? What that means for a young architect is, instead of picking up red lines ad nauseum, and just, some of you understand what I mean, because that's what I did.
Yeah.
Just red lines, and you're not really understanding what the building is doing, but you're just like highlighting off your boss's comments, and that's all you're doing. And I think that the time for that is kind of over. I think the younger generation really needs to understand how these things are put together and how buildings are put together. And it becomes, I think there's a huge opportunity there. So we have young people applying who see that and see these kind of buzzwords and see, you know, articles on this in the New York Times and elsewhere, and factories that are just really making kind of factory jobs a little more sexy. And they see that, and they want to be a part of that. And they really don't want to get into the doldrums of what architecture used to be when you came out of architecture school.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I use this analogy all the time. Young people today are much different than when I was growing up, right? If you were destined to be a carpenter, you were going to trade school, the tech school, what have you. If you were destined to be a doctor, you were going to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't really associate with one another.
Yeah.
But you know, today they have so much in common, and it's these things, right? It's technology.
Exactly.
They're all a super smart kid is playing video games with the kids that, that is more of a skilled trade type person. And that just didn't happen when we were younger. So it's the playing field's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think access to technology and innovation is really something that I think over the last, 20 years, it's been obviously a goal for the United States and the world. And I think it's going to help. I think it's hurt skilled tradesmen's field, because I don't think people want to go into it, but I think it has somewhat leveled the playing field, and it's given people access to certain things. I have a 2-year-old who can use his tablet probably better than I can. So I just think it's insane. And I think that what's exciting about it is seeing how that transforms, and how you see these like kind of young minds who are eager to ask questions about things not being stifled, and
Right.
Them really coming in and saying why all the time, like incessantly. And
Yeah.
kind of what this profession needs.
Well, it really does. So we need 2-year-olds that are teaching us older people how to ask why more often. I'm with you. I like that advice.
Yeah.
I have a 3-year-old, so I know that feeling. So what do you guys have? What do you have coming up? What designs do you have? I mean, outside of the MMC, what are you working on that's really cool? And where do you see DBC Studios trending here in the future as we come out of COVID?
That's a good question. So I'm going to actually, I have something else that I would like to pull up quickly.
Let me take this one out for you.
So yeah, so this is another project that we're working on.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Housing. Yes. Housing. And it's really great. Like, I mean, architecturally, I think it's going to be really interesting. But it's what the concept of this one is really trying to push modular design and modular efficiency as far as possible. You can see how long this building site is. It probably is going to be done in 2 phases. But we're looking at a property that's probably 500 feet long. So that is, and split into 2 phases. And we're trying to figure out how to make it the most efficient possible. And over that 500-foot long floor plate, only have 30 module types, which is just, it's a little bit unheard of to be that efficient. I think that, if you can build a module 3 times per floor in a building, that's at this point pretty efficient. I think here we're looking at something like, building a module 8 times, 10 times per floor. And really, this is where we go back to that DfMA item that we talked about before, it's like really from a schematic process before almost the project starts. We started with this, like, how do we standardize module types as much as possible and still go back to be able to get this variation on the facade? And starting from that point before you even put pen to paper about what you want the building to look like. And I think that's what's really exciting. That's how we kind of approach the project typically, or all of our projects. And I'll show you what, so this is the kind of outside of that building. You saw it at night.
Right.
But,
yep.
Standardized window sizes. And it shows that you can really vary an elevation without having to vary the elements too drastically. And so that's what we're trying to do and trying to push forward with this project specifically. It's one that we're pretty excited about for a lot of different reasons.
And so let me ask, this is all wood-based construction?
Yes, it is all wood-based construction.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's making such a huge comeback right now, wood-based construction. Big comeback.
It is, and there's things that we are kind of in our infancy at looking at as well, which are, you know, MPP panels and CLT panels, and
right.
really thinking, how do we get wood to the next level? So instead of mid-rise construction, can we get it up to 8 stories or 12 stories with the new IBC codes? So it's here to stay. Wood construction is here to stay. It obviously is better for the environment, more sustainable. And with the level of housing that is necessary in a lot of these cities and rural areas as well, like, we're going to have to really start thinking this way and thinking about efficiency and use, efficiency of design and efficiency of construction as well.
Sure. I want to clarify one thing just so the audience that's watching understands as well. With the design, when you say, you know, 3 or 4, 7 or 8 different designs per floor, we're talking about step and repeat, right? We want to be as efficient as we can with our modules, the sizes, the amenities, such as electrical, plumbing, MEPs within those units, to be efficient on these large scale multifamily projects. Is that kind of what you were alluding to?
That is exactly what I'm alluding to. Sure. If you look at what's on the screen right now, I think, you know, a lot of what an architect does is, especially in this kind of vein of construction, is we are looking at we are looking at interior unit of the unit and how someone uses the interior of a unit. But for instance, we're looking at that, but we're also looking at, you know, this module type that you see on the left. That module type is a module. It is also the same module that you see on the right, the left module of the rightmost 2-bedroom. It's the exact same module, with the caveat that there's a little bit of an insert here for additional kitchen cabinetry and desk, but it's the exact same module. And on the left, the concept of the design is that we allow for a punch through here in these like light gray areas so that you can marry it up to the second second part of the module. So really what you're doing is standardizing the unit to a certain degree that really, if I need a 2-bedroom, I know that I can just duplicate the same size and add it to the right-hand side of it. And to the point where you could actually start potentially stocking these things and getting these down to know exactly how much that module costs and how much it ships to various locations. And really start thinking about people having the ability to say, yes, I have this site and I need 50 of these and I need 2 of these, and, you know, getting it off an ordering process, and then it's done. And that's really where we're going. That's the future of what we're trying to do, is standardize these to a point where we can actually use computational design to help us generate these iterations so that the design process is shortened. So we know what is compliant. We know that it meets various HUD and, you know, housing authority requirements, and we can do that stuff quickly so that we can really start focusing on what the exterior concept looks like, you know, what's the siding, and really move on and be able to do more projects that way.
And absolutely. And I mean, these are smart designs, and looking at the photos, you know, the renderings earlier, they're beautiful. I mean, if you really think about what these can turn into, they're not your typical, you know, what most people think modular is. And just from an aesthetics design from the exterior, absolutely phenomenal. All right, what else you got? Let me see.
So yeah, this is just this is going through some of those interior shots of those units, so
Yeah.
that you guys can see them. And really, it's just taking what one might think is kind of luxury or high end, and really making it accessible. There's no need to have something that is modern be expensive.
That's a studio apartment right there.
This is a studio apartment set, and it's a studio apartment with a designated bed area, designated living area, and a designated dining area, which I think, people think that an open concept space that's 13 feet wide can't be used this way. And I think this is what modern living is, especially in cities.
So say it again. The interior wall to interior wall or interior cabinet to cabinet is what, 13 feet?
Yeah, so interior clear space is about 13 feet in these units.
Look at that. I mean, that's I'm moving out.
Yeah, me too.
I'm moving out and moving in.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
No, I think it's great. And let me see if I can.
Yeah, if you live in Manhattan, Boston, LA, or San Francisco, and your studio, I know a lot of people would want to live in that. That is for sure, based on what I know they live in now.
Agreed. And then, and really, and these are the kind of smaller ones, but then this is that same unit, just the opposite side of the wall, and it's a 2-bedroom. And in this space, it's about 13 feet by 18 feet living space, which is not small. I mean,
No.
and in this 2-bedroom, you're looking at something just shy of 800 square feet, but you have significant living space and 2 bedrooms. And you have a little built-in desk as well. So I think that really it's about how you can do this efficiently and design so that a factory can do it efficiently and produce it at a predictable speed and a predictable price, so that we can really start shipping these and using them across the country.
Right.
And that's the way that, the cost to build affordable housing comes down, in our opinion.
Well, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's a little bit common sense.
Yeah.
Right.
I would hope so. I don't think we're doing anything ingenious per se. I think just because of the way that we've figured out this kind of vertical integration, I think it's allowing a lot of people who aren't typically in the same room the safe space to be in the same room and put out ideas that will help move us forward. And I think that's what we're doing successfully.
You're doing, I mean, just these photos or renderings that you're showing us, listen, they're beautiful. If that's what that 13 foot, in the previous slides going to look like, I could live in that all day long. And if you join two together and this is what you're getting, you can't beat it. Honestly, it looks like it's just so well laid out and it's beautiful looking and it's clean. I'm all for it.
I am as well.
I mean, these could be used as just individual ADUs. Put them in the backyard.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. I think that we're trying to obviously hit the most needed segment of the markets, right? So affordable housing, seniors, all of these things, but these can be applied to a lot of different prototypes, student housing, all homeless, supportive, and that we're trying to hit those items, but they can be used for single family housing down the line. I mean, there's so much ability if we start just tweaking the way we're thinking and tweaking the way that we're designing to make them be applicable and really start to grow that market share, but grow that market share in a responsible way.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. All right. Is there more slides after that one?
I don't know that we're going back to the exterior. Yeah, I think that is it on that package.
Got it. So, well, listen, let's, if anybody has questions out there, now is the time. We are going to be hopping into Q&A with Sara. This is where I get to ask all the hard questions and not have to answer anybody. My favorite part of the show. But if you have questions, please put them in the comments now. Please like and share this if you're watching it. It always helps us out, and we're trying to grow the offsite community and teach people, or I shouldn't say teach, educate people on volumetric and modular construction and offsite in general. All right, so let's see. We have some shout outs. Autodesk, Julian Rossi, Roxanne Ouellette. We're in. Volumetric building companies. Do you know Von Buckley? This guy's all over the place. Do you know who he is?
I do.
Yeah. Sean Hendricks. Love it. Tammy Safranik from Pittsburgh was joining us. Hey, Tammy. Shane McNutt from Nudo. Rick Hawkins from Atlanta. Anthony Good, New Jersey. If I say some of these wrong, please do not light me up on social media. Paresh Trivedi from New Jersey. Connell Rouse, North Carolina. Anthony Bonaventura from Pennsylvania. Tiffany McCall. You know Tiffany, right? From the BSC.
Mhm.
She is the chair of the BSC this year. John Magnan says hello. All right. So first question, Julian Rossi, Autodesk. Can you tell us how you go from design to fabrication?
I assume that we're talking about in actual documentation form. So our office is really currently using BIM 360 as our platform, and we found it really helpful. So thank you, Autodesk. But we have developed our kind of design model and design standards to use the same information that the factory that we have needs. So what we end up doing is at the end of the kind of design and permit review process, we actually hand our model directly to the factory engineers. This is one of the good things about vertical integration. And then they take that and take it to the next level of detailing for factory production drawings.
Love it. Perfect. So hope that answered your question. If it did, just give us a yes. If you have a follow-up, let us know. All right. So another question, can these MMC units be relocated to a permanent foundation?
Yes, they can. I think I have a little
bit
bit
about that.
Yeah, we have a little bit of an animation that I can run in the background for you guys shortly. But okay. That's the whole point. The whole point is, yeah, let me go to that and see.
Yeah, if you have it, I'll take this other one out here and you can add the new one.
Yeah, let me do that for you guys.
Yeah, I love animations. We're really stepping up our game. You're going to have you on more often.
Yeah, we've been working a lot on this stuff. So we'll see let's see if I can bring it up quickly.
Well, you're pulling that up. Listen, if you're joining us, Sara.Ann Logan, VBC Studios, a master of modular and volumetric design. Every time I say it, you look like you're blushing.
I do.
I know.
I do.
I know, but there's so much to learn. I think we could probably go all day. We should have like a 12-hour marathon session. What do you think?
We could. I would like there to be other people involved in this if we do that.
So you can eat?
Yeah, so I can, take a drink of water and all of those things.
Right. All right, you're on screen.
Yep. But this is actually showing the COVID project, but talking through the ward rooms and it getting built and clad in the factory, and then put on a trailer to get shipped to its initial location, and then you'll see that they get stacked, the various modules. If you were with us earlier, this is the 12 module configuration in its temporary setting.
Right.
And then this is how it looks after. And then really what the concept is you take it all apart. You bring back your crane and your transportation, you take it apart and you go to its final location. And what you're going to see here is those units being fit out to create them into the apartment style living. So the second use case, and they get transported across the country, we're envisioning,
right,
and get stacked to 3 stories, and then your exterior elements go on, and then you have your building.
So it went from a COVID help crisis or rooms to put patients in, or for nurses and doctors to get rest.
Yes.
And then it turns into that. That's what's incredible. And that's why the government, FEMA, all these, they need to open their eyes and really take a look at what you guys have done, because that is so much better than throwing stuff in the landfill.
Yeah.
I'm a big push on that. And if you know Ben Carson, I've been trying to get a hold of him. Maybe you could call him for me. And
yeah. Yeah, we're putting it out there. I mean, I'll let it play in the background just in case people missed it. But
yeah.
This is the idea.
I love it. Perfect. Well, maybe we can share that again down the road. So there was a follow-up question from Julianne Rossi.
Okay.
How does computational design assist you in streamlining this?
It helps it a lot, a few ways, right? So I think that what we have done is that we've had our experience and kind of created these initial models. I think what it's going to help us do in the future is really make tweaks and and revisions to these models without having to put all of the care that we've taken to develop the initial prototypes. And I think that once we do that, we can really start thinking about how it fits to various sites very quickly, and without the amount of individual input that it would take to try to modularize every specific site. So really, if you're looking at site design and pre-planning and pro formas that people need to hit, I think it's going to help that process go quickly by knowing these are the parameters that we're working with.
Perfect. Love it. Love it. All right. We got more. What advice would you give to well-established traditional architects who want to get into volumetric? Can they? Well, go ahead.
Partner is what I would say. I think that, their architects or local architects who have, their hand on the beat of that community or locale will always be necessary. And I think that really partnering on a project with either a factory or a design team in a factory will help that architect kind of ease into it and kind of understand the principles of what they need to do. We're doing that a lot. We have certain architects that we work with and we repeat projects with them in the same cities and different cities, just because we now, after you do one project together, you understand how that architect works. You can really refine the scope of what we're doing or what a modular engineer would be doing, and what they're doing. And that's the best way to kind of learn.
Sure. Do you find that the transition is fairly easy for an architect once they grasp the general parameters of this?
We're problem solvers. That's what architects are. We're problem solvers. So I think that really, as soon as someone tells you not to do things or says, hey, this way is actually more efficient for the factory, I think you internalize that. I think it's really hilarious because I don't know what about architecture school makes everyone want to mirror a unit, like just flat out, just say, okay, let me mirror this. Like it's something that architects know inherently to do. And one of the things I say is don't do that. And then they don't do it. So I think it's just as easy as those things. It's like things that we do inherently as an architect that we don't even really know why we do them. And when someone teaches you why not to and how it's wasteful, then you just know and you don't do it next time. So.
Sure. I just had a brilliant idea while you were talking.
Oh, great.
It's just gonna take more of your time, so you're gonna hate me. Well, listen, wouldn't it be a lot of fun to have a live show like this and get the local architects from Harvard or what have you to join the show to start a conversation with people that are designing this way? I think it would just be so much fun to tap into some great minds.
I think it would be great. I will talk to you afterwards because I have some connections that I think.
Oh, yeah, that would be fun. All right, so we got a couple more here. If you're joining us, we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So, but LinkedIn is our primary source of fun. Okay, more shout outs. Steve Patterson, employee benefits. June Suter. Do you know June Suter?
Yeah, I do.
Yep. Craig Carter, Terry Patterson, Hamilton City Schools. Terry was on. All right. So another question. Julian Rossi is busy with questions. He wants to pick your mind. What's the most time-consuming phase of the design process?
Schematic. It is not the most time-consuming for us. But it is the most time consuming for every other architect. And really for us, the best use of modular is to try to inform the client about the items that they need to be using and the items that they don't need to be using, or the design principles they need to be using and the design principles they don't need to be using. And once you kind of get buy-in from the clients and the architects, then I actually think it's very fast. In my previous life as an architect, I think pinning clients down to not make revisions can be difficult, to say the least. And I think really having them understand holistically how revisions can not only gum up the process, but how certain unit designs can help them and be more cost effective and help with the speed of their production and help them come into their building faster. I think if we can all easily quantify that for them, I think that they will come along. But I think in general, architecture is a service industry, and really making sure the client gets what they want is one of our biggest things that we do. And so it's hard for a lot of us to shorten the schematic design process, but that's what we're going to need to do. I hope that answers the question.
If it doesn't, they can do a quick follow-up question. So here you go. Last question. In terms of the future, do you see homeowners or builders ordering these pre-constructed units online?
I think probably builders. I think that we're looking at this kind of scale with this kind of building. I think it's really going to be an order either through a developer, but most likely through a GC who will have a contract with either the governmental agency or the developer themselves. I think that that's what we're thinking. We're thinking that it's going to be more of kind of a, click to purchase kind of thing, right? Yeah. And then with these standardized designs, and then if they want something a little bit more custom or a little bit more tailored for whatever reason, then we would get into the kind of full design scope.
Yeah, no, I agree. This is definitely going to go to where you can just click through, just like ordering a Tesla.
Yeah.
Or anything else, once you get the parameters of what it is that we really need and what we love to live in, kind of nailed down. I agree with you. I think it's going to be a mix of everybody going this route.
Yeah. I think single family will also go this route eventually. I just think that at the scale and investment needed, it's going to hit the multifamily market first.
So can I put my foundation in and then order something today and have drones drop it off tomorrow? A little early for that?
I think maybe we should talk about that one on the next.
Yeah. Well, this is where the students come in, right? Because that's well beyond my knowledge.
Those are the kids. Those are the kids. We need more kids. So if you want to intern, hello, come, please.
Yeah.
Hi.
So Sarah, why don't you plug yourself a little bit? Tell everybody how they get a hold of you, and you tell everybody what you're looking for, because you are hiring, because you guys are growing fast and gearing up for the future. And then that's kind of a wrap, unless another question comes in while I'm looking at it.
Okay. So, so how you get in contact with us, we have an office in Cambridge. The construction office and main headquarters for Volumetric building companies is in Philadelphia. So you can get in contact with us here in Cambridge or us in Philadelphia. And my email address is slogan, Logan, at vbc.co. Please get in contact with us. We're currently on the architectural side looking for interns for the summer, and also junior project architects and senior project architects to help us get the amount of buildings that we have signing contracts into actual reality.
How awesome is that? All right. So listen, we got to get the youth out there and get them working. So let's pass that around. Yes. Everybody could like and share that one last time. I have your website up on the screen there, so people can get in touch with you. Great. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave.
Yep. And a big shout out to everybody that tuned in. Juliana Rossi, you had a lot of great questions today. I love it when we get interaction. I really do appreciate everybody takes the time. So, all right, listen, Sarah, we're going to talk offline. We got a few things to go over. You just hold tight there, and I'll be right back to you. And everybody else,
okay.
Off-site construction is the future. Modular, volumetric. Let's get the word out. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you soon.
Okay.